Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless spoilers suggest Diane Abbott's dark side could come out in the aftermath of Jack Abbott's betrayal. During the Monday, March 16th episode, Diane was shocked to see Jack in bed with Patty Williams. Jack's wife had been beside herself with worry, going to extreme lengths to find her husband, rescue him from his hostage situation, and bring him back home safe. Diane knew that Victor Newman had kidnapped Jack to use him as a bargaining chip to get back Chancellor Industries as well as Newman Enterprises. During the Friday, March 13th show, Diane, along with Billy Abbott and Kyle Abbott, had also learned that Patty was aboard the yacht where Jack was being held captive. All three of Jack's loved ones were wrought with concern, as Patty is infamous for making unhinged and dangerous decisions. She has a long history of mental health instability, and mixing that in with her obsession with Jack, things didn't look good. To boot, Patty has even shot at Jack before, so Diane, Billy and Kyle moved mountains in their rescue efforts. As such, fans can imagine Diane's surprise when she ran to Jack's room, busted open the door to find him half-clothed lying next to Patty. Both Billy and Kyle were shocked and disgusted at the display of what their brother and dad were up to, while so many were concerned about his safety. When the room cleared, Diane even laid a hard slap across Jack's face for what transpired when the two of them were alone. Diane was seething at Jack's actions, and no one could really blame her for her response. Jack was drugged by Patty, which could explain why he crossed a line with his crazy ex, but he was so caught off guard by getting caught that he couldn't muster the words to tell Diane. Plus, Jack appeared to still be disoriented over whatever Patty medicated him with. It's interesting because during the March 13th episode, Diane warned she'd destroy anyone responsible if something terrible happened to Jack. She and Kyle talked about revenge, and she reminded him just how dark she used to be. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and Diane is as upset a woman can be. Not only did Jack cheat on her, but with Patty Williams no less, all while Diane hadn't slept, eaten, or been able to relax thanks to his kidnapping. Diane used to be quite the crafty schemer back in the day, and there have been recent times that she's revealed this side for the greater good. Still, with what Jack has done, what kind of revenge will she release on him, and potentially the rest of the Abbotts? Diane has an upper-level executive job at Jabot and is on board, so will she look to strip Jack of any association with the company? Could she boot him out of the Abbott mansion in the aftermath of his one-night stand? Diane may unleash her wrath against Patty or even Victor, so only time will tell the damage that Jack's wife does once all is said and done. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that the truth of Jack being drugged will surely come out at some point. But after Diane is done with him and everyone else in his orbit, will it be too late? In the turbulent world of the Young and the Restless, emotions were already stretched to the breaking point when a moment unfolded that no one could have predicted. The tension had been building for days, ever since Jack Abbott vanished under mysterious and dangerous circumstances, leaving his loved ones scrambling to find him before it was too late. His wife Diane Abbott had been living in a state of relentless dread, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios as she fought to bring her husband home. She knew exactly who was responsible for Jack's disappearance: Victor Newman, a man powerful enough to turn lives upside down with a single calculated move. Victor had orchestrated the kidnapping to force a ruthless negotiation, using Jack as leverage in his quest to reclaim control of both Chancellor Industries and Newman Enterprises. For Diane, this wasn't just business warfare anymore. It was deeply personal, a desperate fight to save the man she loved from a situation that could spiral into tragedy at any moment. Every hour that passed without answers tightened the knot of fear in her chest, pushing her to take increasingly extreme measures to bring Jack back safely. But the danger surrounding Jack didn't stop with Victor's schemes, because another unsettling revelation soon made the situation even more volatile. Diane, along with Billy Abbott and Kyle Abbott, discovered that someone else was on the yacht where Jack was being held captive, someone whose presence could turn the situation deadly in an instant. That person was Patty Williams, a woman whose complicated history with Jack was filled with obsession, instability, and moments that bordered on terrifying. Patty's reputation preceded her, and it wasn't a comforting one. She had a long and troubling history of unpredictable behavior and mental health struggles that made every decision she made feel like a ticking time bomb. For Diane, Billy, and Kyle, the knowledge that Patty was trapped in close quarters with Jack made their fear intensify to an unbearable degree. This was the same woman who had once shot at Jack in the past, a chilling reminder that her obsession with him could easily transform into something dangerous and uncontrollable. Driven by panic and determination, the three of them pushed forward with relentless urgency, willing to move mountains if that's what it took to bring Jack home alive. Their rescue efforts were fueled by love, fear, and the haunting possibility that time might run out before they could reach him. Every decision they made carried enormous weight because they understood the unpredictable storm they were walking into. Patty's fixation on Jack had never been healthy, and the idea of her being alone with him while he was already vulnerable was enough to make anyone's heart race with dread. Diane in particular was running on pure adrenaline, refusing to sleep, refusing to slow down, and refusing to imagine a future where Jack didn't make it home. Her determination hardened into something fierce and almost frightening, the kind of resolve that comes from loving someone so deeply that losing them simply isn't an option. She had already warned that if anything terrible happened to Jack, the people responsible would pay dearly for it. And in those tense hours leading up to the rescue, those words felt less like a warning and more like a promise. When the door to Jack's room was finally thrown open, however, the reality waiting on the other side was more shocking than anyone could have prepared for. Diane burst in, expecting to find a frightened, injured husband who needed saving, but instead she was met with a scene that froze her in stunned disbelief. There was Jack half-clothed, lying in bed beside Patty Williams, an image so surreal and painful that it seemed to steal the air from the room. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating, as Billy and Kyle stared at the scene with a mix of disbelief, disgust, and heartbreak. For days they had feared Jack might die, imagining the worst horrors that captivity could bring. Yet what they found instead was something that felt almost like betrayal. In that moment, the rescue turned into something else entirely, a confrontation layered with confusion, anger, and emotional devastation. The sight of Jack beside Patty shattered the fragile relief Diane had been holding on to, replacing it with a storm of fury and heartbreak that erupted before anyone could stop it. Once the room finally cleared and the chaos settled into tense silence, Diane confronted Jack alone, the emotions she had been holding back finally breaking free. The slap she delivered across his face wasn't just about anger, it was the culmination of sleepless nights, endless fear, and the crushing shock of what she had just witnessed. Jack looked disoriented and dazed, his mind still clouded by whatever drugs Patty had given him, and he struggled to process what was happening around him. The truth was that he had been drugged, a fact that could explain why boundaries had blurred and judgment had failed him in that moment of vulnerability. Yet standing there, stunned and exhausted, he couldn't find the words fast enough to explain himself to Diane. The shock of being caught, combined with the lingering haze of medication, left him helpless in the face of his wife's burning rage. And for Diane, the explanation hardly mattered in that moment, because the damage to her heart had already been done. What made the betrayal cut even deeper was the cruel timing of it all. Diane had spent every waking moment terrified for Jack's life, sacrificing sleep, food, and peace of mind while she worked tirelessly to save him. She had been ready to unleash fury on anyone responsible for harming him, vowing vengeance with a determination that reminded even her own son just how dark she used to be. In the past, Diane had been known as a master schemer, someone capable of ruthless and cunning strategies when pushed too far. Over the years, she had tried to leave that version of herself behind, channeling her intelligence and ambition into her role at Jabot and her place within the Abbott family. But now, staring at the wreckage of her trust, those old instincts began stirring again beneath the surface. The pain of betrayal has a way of awakening parts of a person they thought were long buried. And as the saying goes, hell truly has no fury like a woman scorned. Now the question hanging over Genoa City is not just whether Jack can repair the damage, but how far Diane might go before the truth finally comes to light. As a powerful executive at Jabot and a central figure within the Abbott family, she has the means to make Jack's life far more difficult if she chooses to. She could strip him of influence within the company, challenge his standing within the family business, or even throw him out of the iconic Abbott mansion altogether. Her anger could just as easily turn toward Patty, whose obsession has once again ignited chaos in their lives, or even toward Victor Newman, the architect of the entire nightmare. Revenge, after all, rarely follows a straight path, and Diane has never been afraid to play the long game when necessary. Somewhere beneath the turmoil, the truth about Jack being drugged will eventually surface, shedding new light on what really happened in that room. But by the time that truth reaches Diane's ears, the question remains chillingly uncertain. Will the damage she unleashes already be too great to undo? As the dust slowly settled from that explosive confrontation, the emotional shockwaves rippled through every corner of Genoa City, leaving relationships hanging by fragile threads. In the aftermath of that devastating discovery, the once unbreakable trust between Diane Abbott and Jack Abbott now felt dangerously fractured, as though a single misstep could shatter what remained of their marriage forever. Diane stood at the center of the storm she never expected to face, her heart torn between the man she had fought so desperately to save and the unbearable image she could not erase from her mind. The memory of bursting through that door and finding Jack beside Patty Williams replayed over and over again, each time tightening the knot of betrayal twisting in her chest. For days, she had lived in constant terror, imagining the worst possible outcomes of his kidnapping, believing she might lose him forever. Instead, the truth she found waiting for her carried its own devastating weight, one that cut deeper than fear ever could. And now, as the reality of that moment settled into her bones, Diane felt something awaken within her that she had spent years trying to bury. There was a time when Diane was known throughout Genoa City as someone capable of brilliant manipulation and ruthless strategy, a woman who never hesitated to fight dirty when the stakes were high enough. Over the years, she had worked tirelessly to reinvent herself, proving to everyone, especially the Abbotts, that she could be trusted, that she could build something real and honest alongside the family she had once deceived. Her position at Jabot was supposed to symbolize that redemption, a powerful reminder that she had grown beyond the calculating schemer she once was. But now, standing in the ruins of her faith in Jack, those old instincts stirred like a storm long trapped beneath calm waters. Betrayal has a way of reopening doors people thought they had permanently sealed shut, and Diane could feel that darker part of herself whispering again. She had already warned her son that if anything terrible happened to Jack, she would not hesitate to destroy the people responsible. Ironically, the man who now stood at the center of her fury was the very one she had risked everything to save. Across the Abbott family, the tension only continued to escalate as the fallout spread from one painful moment to the next. Billy Abbott and Kyle Abbott were still reeling from what they had witnessed, their relief at finding Jack alive quickly replaced by confusion and disgust. Both men had spent days fearing the worst, convinced that Jack's life was in danger, only to discover a situation that made them question everything they thought they knew about their father and brother. The image of Jack lying there beside Patty lingered in their minds, raising uncomfortable questions that no one seemed ready to answer. Yet even beneath their frustration, there was a lingering unease about the strange circumstances surrounding the moment. Jack had seemed disoriented, his eyes clouded and unfocused, as though he were struggling to understand where he was or how things had unfolded. It was a detail that none of them could quite ignore, even as anger continued to cloud their judgment. Meanwhile, the shadow of Victor Newman still loomed over the entire situation like an unseen puppeteer pulling the strings behind the chaos. After all, none of this would have happened if Victor had not orchestrated the kidnapping in the first place, using Jack as a bargaining chip in his ruthless campaign to reclaim control of Chancellor Industries and Newman Enterprises. His strategy had been calculated and cold, a move designed to force his rivals into submission through fear and desperation. But what Victor likely hadn't anticipated was the emotional explosion that would follow once Jack was finally found. In trying to manipulate the Abbott family into surrendering power, he had instead ignited a chain reaction that threatened to tear them apart from the inside. And if Diane decided to direct her fury toward the man who started it all, Victor might soon find himself facing consequences he hadn't accounted for. Then there was Patty herself, the unpredictable force whose obsession with Jack had once again thrown everything into chaos. Patty Williams had always been a complicated figure, someone whose deep emotional scars and mental instability often blurred the line between love and destruction. Her fixation on Jack had spanned years, sometimes surfacing in ways that were unsettling, even dangerous. The fact that she had once shot at him in the past remained a chilling reminder of just how volatile her emotions could become. And now, learning that she had drugged Jack only added another disturbing layer to the story. Whatever had happened in that room was clearly not as simple as it had appeared when Diane first walked in, but convincing a wounded wife of that truth would be far easier said than done. For Jack, the situation was just as devastating, if not more so, because he could barely piece together the events that had led to that moment. The medication Patty had given him had clouded his senses, leaving him disoriented and vulnerable in ways he struggled to explain. His memories of the night felt fragmented, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across a dark room he couldn't fully see. By the time Diane burst through the door, he was still trying to make sense of what had happened, still fighting the lingering haze that dulled his thoughts. When her hand struck his face, it wasn't just the sting of the slap that shocked him. It was the sudden realization that everything he had built with her was now hanging by a thread, and before he could even attempt to explain, the damage had already begun to spread. Now, the future of the Abbott family stands at a dangerous crossroads, with emotions running hotter than they have in years. Diane's pain and fury have placed her in a position where revenge may feel more satisfying than forgiveness, especially with her power and influence inside Jabot. She could strip Jack of his authority within the company, challenge his standing within the family empire, or even force him out of the Abbott mansion entirely. At the same time, her anger could just as easily shift toward Patty or Victor, both of whom played crucial roles in the chaos that led to this devastating moment. Genoa City has seen Diane unleash her wrath before, and history proves she is more than capable of dismantling lives when pushed far enough. The troubling question now is how far she is willing to go before someone finally reveals the truth about Jack being drugged. Because eventually the truth will surface, it always does in Genoa City. The evidence will emerge, the pieces will fall into place, and Diane will learn that the moment she believed was betrayal may not have been what it seemed at all, but by the time that revelation arrives, the damage caused by anger, heartbreak, and revenge could already be irreversible. Trust once broken is one of the hardest things to rebuild, especially when pain has had time to harden into resentment. And as the storm continues to gather over the Abbott family, one haunting possibility lingers in the air. When Diane finally learns the full truth about what happened that night, will it already be too late to save the love she once fought so fiercely to protect?